Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm glad you're here. It has been an amazing journey throughout the year, and this is my first video I'll be posting on my YouTube. And I believe that you are going to learn a lot because I have so many things that have been packed for us for the year, and I will actually want you to stay tuned, to stay glued to this channel. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe because there's a lot that is being packed for us for this year 2024. So the topic I'll be considering today is identity rebirth. Identity rebirth. So it's such a good topic to actually consider because we live in a world where people are actually confused about who they really are. There are some persons that they believe that they are just living for themselves alone. They don't have meaning to their lives. Some people are just living a life that is just going zigzag and they can actually put a meaning to what's actually happening. And one thing I actually notice is that when it comes to the issue of identity, like the children said, I said identity is a distinguished character of a person. So it means that as a human being, means that you should actually have something that actually defines you as someone who actually is living on it. And the crisis of our identity do not just start with you, because if we were to look at the history of how things has been right from time, we can see that even the first man that God actually created, that's Adam and Eve, they also had identity crisis. And it's kind of amazing that looking at them, God actually put so much potential in them, so much thing that God actually imbibed in them. He told them to have dominion, to be fruitful, and they should replenish the earth. But yet they still had identity crisis. So let me tell you how they actually had identity crisis. And that boils down to the point of when Eve actually faced temptation. Now, it's such an interesting story that Satan actually came to Eve, that's the serpent now, and told Eve that look at that tree at the middle of the garden. The God said that you should not eat of it. And she was actually interacting with Eve, and it's really kind of amazing that she got talking with the devil and was like, no, God not said you should not actually eat of it, but he said of that tree of good and evil you should not eat of it. And Satan was now trying to give them another identity in such a way that if you are going to eat that particular fruit, do you know that you are going to become like God? But she actually fell for that trap, not knowing that God already created them in his image and in his likeness. So that's we can see that that was where the issue of identity actually started. So it's not something new in our world. So don't think like why is it that this thing actually happened to me? Even the first set of person that God created actually had an identity crisis. But thanks to God that now we're actually being restored. So there's a lot of things that are going on in our world nowadays. There are so many persons that are actually frustrated. There are so many persons that are actually confused. They are mixed with the crowd and they don't actually know what to do. And all those things actually it's rampant amongst the youth because we're always trying to please people that are actually that are around us. And I want us to know that identity is far beyond what we have. Identity goes to who you are. So identity is not about what you have alone because we believe that identity is about the things that you have and all, but identity is about who you are. So now, when I say identity rebirth, we must actually come to the terms that identity actually comes from four different sources. So identity comes from four different sources, and I'm going to name them and I'll try to explain on how people actually identify themselves beyond the demographics that maybe gender or race and the way the world actually tells people about like how they characterize themselves. But boiling down to what actually matters the most. The first thing is that one of the ways that people can actually get to identify themselves is by their experience. How they can actually term who they really are is by what they've actually passed through. Now, experience at times can be in terms of pain and in terms of pleasure. And why do I say that? Because when we go through life, there are some times that we go through life in like a zigzag form that there are times that we are at the peak of life and it seems that things are going very very easy for us And also there are times that things are actually at the low bottom of life, and it seems that things are actually weighing us down. But through all those series of journey they are taking, there's something that is actually forming with you. That's what is tagged as an identity. So now I want to talk about Abraham. Abraham in the Bible. The Bible called Abraham as a man of faith. Why? Because he was a man that actually followed God on the journey of faith. So now when God, how would God actually tell someone to actually leave his father's land and all and go to a land that he doesn't even know where he is? So he it must have taken such a great faith to have been able to follow God on that particular journey. So that's why his experience tagged him as a man of faith. Now, if let's look at David in the Bible, they said that David was a man after God's heart. So now we can see that David was always a worshipper of God, even while he was actually tendering his father's sheep in the bush. And yet God was actually molding him, and in that process he was having like series of experiences. So now it's also experiences that God actually termed as a man after my heart. So now I want to say that there are times that what you actually pass through in life, it might be that things are not actually going your way. There is always popular saying that when you pass through a mess, that God is always trying to give you a message out of that thing you are passing through. So now let's take for example someone who has been trusting God for a fruit of the womb, and she got that particular child after several years. Now, the identity that man has is that God answers prayer, and that woman can, in such a way, have a way of using her message to encourage people because she has actually experienced that. So that woman will actually be able to know how best to relate with those that are actually looking for the fruit of the womb at that particular time, because she has actually passed through that particular mess, and God has actually given her a victory. So by expressing, we can actually know that who we really are. So now the second thing that we can actually use to identify ourselves is what I call possession. Possessions, like things that we have in terms of money, in terms of fame, in terms of position. So now let's take for instance someone who is a vice chancellor of a university is also tagged as a position. That's a position, and that man is what is a VC of a particular school. So now, if you were to see that man maybe giving a speech, you won't say that, oh, you can say that, oh, see, Doctor so 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 and so, that's the VC of so so university. So now you're able to say, okay, that's like an identity. But when you look at in terms of fame too as well, and in terms of money, let's say for instance in our world we say okay, Dangote is the richest man and he has so much conglomerate, like his conglomerate is rich. He's actually diversifying into petroleum, into cement, into sugar, and so many other things. So I can actually say that that itself is actually in terms of money and in terms of fame, because the money actually gave me a privilege to be known. And something about possession is that we should not actually always tie our identity to positions, because there are times that positions are always temporal. And that is it that most people that they've actually filled a large position maybe in their career, just that something actually happened and they are back at the bottom because they depend on that position, and they believe that at that particular seat that they are, they can actually live life the way they are, and they believe that that is what actually tells them about who they are. So now when that position shifts from their place, means that they don't have a definition for life again. And something about fame too is that there are times that fame is like something that, how I put it now, there are times that when you look at fame, it's like a wildfire, it burns. But over the time, is when a wildfire begins to burn and there is no more wood, it begins to quench, and the intensity begins to come down. So now there are times that you don't actually have to depend on fame to be what actually defines you. And that's why I say that most of our celebrities now in our time, they believe that their identity is being tagged to their fame. That's why they want to go to any length to be able to acquire fame. But if you look at it over the years, you see that those those celebrities that were actually tagged as people that really, let's say next 10 years, 20 years, you find that they are no more relevant again. Means that their fame has actually reduced. So now, and also in terms of money, money actually has wings. Something can happen. You can actually be rich today and be poor tomorrow. You can actually make a bad investment. There are many persons that they are very wealthy, and just a single investment that they actually made in a particular trade, what that's what actually turned everything down for them. So now, so identity should not actually be tagged to your fame, should be tagged to money, or should be tagged to position. Another thing that we can actually use to know who we are in terms of identity is what I term purpose. What I term purpose. So now, one thing about life is that everyone who is born in this world, God has something very unique. God has something very special for you. And before we came to the world, God already designed that you have a particular plan, and you can't actually know who you really are until actually go back to the manufacturer. Like, let's say, for instance, you want to operate a particular product. Let's say, for instance, you got an iPhone 15 and you're a new user of it. You have not used maybe the one of like the previous iPhones that have been used before. One thing you do is that you have to go to the manual that was given by the manufacturer. Then you're going to read, okay, this is how to use this particular phone. Okay, this phone, is it water resistant and all. So now you actually go back to manufacturer to know what the purpose of the phone is. So now, if you want to know what our purpose is that we have to go back to our source, which is God. Another thing that we can actually know to know our identity is by our characters too as well, because that actually plays a long way on how we can actually know who we really are. And one thing you can actually know who you really are is that look around, just take a survey and ask people that who do they think that you are? Are you a man of integrity? Are you an honest man? Are you a man of excellence? Are you a man of modesty? Or you are just someone who just lives life anyhow? Or you're a lazy person, you procrastinate? So all those things really matter. So we can actually know who we really are by actually judging by those 4 points that I actually mentioned. That's in terms of our experiences, in terms of our possessions, that's linking to our fame, money, and position, also in purpose, and lastly, in terms of character. I would say that for us to be able to know how we can actually have a regret, because looking at someone who has actually journeyed from a life of past failures and past life, and it seems as if that things are not actually working well the way you actually want it to be, there's a way you can actually have a rebirth. When I say rebirth now, means that things can actually come alive again, things can come anew again. And if you're someone that you actually believe your life very well, that's still good. But I believe that there's something you're still going to learn from this. One of the ways you can actually know that you'll be able to get a rebirth of your identity is number one, you must actually understand your source. Your source. You must know your source. Now, we let's look at a child that was being born into a family that they are warriors. Let's say, for instance, now in the Yoruba language, in Yoruba tribe rather, they will say that Balogun. So you know that there's something that has been linked to that particular family. Or let's say, for example, people that come from from the real family, they call them, do you have something that is being tagged like Ade, maybe Adeyemi or Adekunle? So it means that the Ade actually means crown. That kind of person, we know that any child that is born into that particular family, we know that they have like a kinship role that they have. Now, why I say that you have to know your source is that a child knows his source, knows that his father is a warrior. So now, as a child who knows that his father is a warrior, knows that he might actually have a possibility of actually becoming a warrior too in future, because a father will actually wants his child to actually take the same process that he took in life. Now, the thing is that we're actually formed by God, and God created us in his own image. Now, I said in the beginning that we're unique and special. So now, God is our source. But the thing is that we as human beings, we've actually validated our own source from the world, because we try to get validations from what people say about us, from the experience that we've gone through, the odds, the failures, and we forget about where our source is from. And our source is from God. So now, for you to have a rebirth, you must know that God is one that actually formed you, and God has a special purpose for you to fulfill on earth. The second point is that after you know your source, one thing you must know is that you must actually constantly develop your mind, because that's like the engine room of your life, because your mind actually it controls your thoughts and all. So now how can you actually have an editing rebirth by actually developing your mind? Number one is that you have to know the scriptures as a child of God, because that's one of the fundamental ways you can actually know your traits. Because I know I said that in the first point, you must know your source. And you know your source, you must actually train your mind to be able to know, okay, what are the things that are actually laid down for you in the scripture, because God actually has promises for his children in scriptures. And you can actually know that the mind of God towards you as a Christian is that for you to excel, for you to dominate, for you to replenish the earth, and to be fruitful. So now that actually gives you that as an human being, as a Christian, you know that you can actually perform exceedingly well, because now, because you've trained your mind to know who you really are, because you know that your source is a source of strength. You know that God is our source of strength. You know that from God we actually have what we have what we call greatness and abundance that God has really had for us. Another thing is that for us to actually have identity rebirth is what I term you actually paying the price, because it doesn't come easy on us. And looking at how a child actually goes from being a toddler to a young child, then to grows to his teenage years, then down to the youth, then down to the adult stage. So it means that it takes a lot for your mind to actually develop. It takes for you to actually have an idea about who you are. And rebirth doesn't just take place in maybe just 1 month. That you want to know who you really are. It's you actually sitting down, then looking back and just thinking about, okay, that how have I actually lived my life? What's this thing that I've actually done? How has this actually helped me in this such a way? So that will actually help you to be able to decode who you really are. So what I'm saying is that identity rebirth actually takes time. It takes process. Is like a butterfly goes from the egg to the larva to pupa, then to the butterfly, then that's the adult. So it shows that it's something that you have to be doing continuously. You have to be persistent. You have to be consistent about it. You don't have to give up at all. So the last thing I'll consider to be able to have an identity rebirth is what I tagged you actually finding a mentor. And it's interesting because there are times that in this journey, there are many persons that have actually taken that particular step, that particular route you have taken before. So now you don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel again. You just are following those people that you know that they've actually taken this particular step. And there was a time I was actually listening to one of Pastor E. Adeboye's message. It was like when God called him into the ministry, and he was trusting God that who are those he was going to follow. And he was led to go and read Apostle Paul, was led to go and read Elijah, and was led to go and read, I think, Elijah too as well. So now he was able to know that, okay, this is the pattern that God actually laid in line for him. And he was able to look at their lives. He was able to to understand how those people actually lived their life by reading what they did on it. And that actually helps a lot, because necessarily you don't have to reinvent the wheel again, because people have actually done that. And it's kind of amazing, because there's a scripture actually finds suited to this in book of Philippians chapter 4 verse 9. That Apostle was saying that whatsoever you've learned, whatsoever you receive, whatsoever you've heard, and whatsoever is seen in me, say you should do. So it means that all those people that you see as a mentor, as a role model, you can actually help yourself by looking at what they are doing, at what they are living their lives to, at what they are hearing, and what they are actually saying. So now that's one of the ways you can actually help yourself to be able to have an identity rebirth. So know that it takes time. Know that you have to continue to develop your mind. You also have to know that you need a mentor, and lastly, you have to know your source. Yeah, in conclusion, I'll say that the world will identify men that have discovered and persistently built their identities on their purpose, on their characters, on their possessions, such as their fame, their money, and also their positions and experiences to actually make a life-changing impact on it, such as the Martin Luther King Jr. that had to fight for social justice in America for the blacks, and also the likes of Corey ten Boom that had to house the Jews when the Nazis were actually destroying and killing the Jews that were based in Netherlands, and also the likes of Mary Slessor that had to stand to fight against those that are actually killing the twins. So I believe that you can actually make a difference, even no matter how small that thing you are doing might be. So try to find your place. I know that things will actually work out for you, and remember that identity rebirth actually takes time. So stay with the process and you find out that things will are becoming clearer and more insightful for you. Yes.